Good day, I'm David.
And I'm Jerry.
And today we're going to talk about 3 ways to change the world with your heart.
Wow. Sounds good.
Yeah, it does sound good.
So what are those 3 ways?
So number 1 is be empathetic. I think empathy is quite significant because empathy, in my opinion, is the idea that you're putting yourself in other individuals' perspectives based on how they would feel in a different scenario, not necessarily how you would feel. If it was done on a widespread level, everyone would always be looking out for their neighbor versus looking out for themselves. And in that scenario, a lot of things could be different. Industries could be different. The idea of competition in itself could be entirely non-existent if you think about it. The world would be quite different in many fundamental ways if people were more empathetic, and the list could go on. But I think that is a huge part of how you could change the world with your heart, so to speak.
I think that's absolutely true. People who cannot show empathy for another person or are showing tendencies of pathological behavior, because the ultimate definition of a pathologically crazy person is somebody who can't feel what another person feels, can't even begin to imagine what another person would feel because of his own actions from doing something to that person. They don't feel anything. So becoming empathetic or learning to be empathetic, practicing being empathetic, maybe you're not as good as you need to be with that. You can get that way. You can practice and you can learn to be a lot more caring about other people. And that would change the world if we all did that. I know one of the things that being empathetic is, don't judge a book by its cover. If you meet people, big, fat, ugly, beautiful, short, skinny, whatever, if you can give that person a smile, just walk past you, smile, and go on about your day. And some people say that's the only smile some people ever get. Great. Be empathetic. I've always felt like the people who are janitorial people that work quietly and are working away in some big box store, cleaning an office or something, we're not empathetic to those people. We don't think about how does that person feel when a guy in a suit walks by and they're just basically in the clothes they can barely afford, and they're doing menial labor. Okay, things are the way they are, but do you think maybe that the person walking by who is in a very good state in life could be a little bit more empathetic to that person? That doesn't mean give them money or anything else. It might mean just looking at a Hispanic person that's working really hard. You might say, "Buenos dias, how are you?" Have a good day, or if they do something really nice, mucho gusto.
Yeah.
Mucho gusto. Live life well.
Yeah, I think it's interesting because you never know when that individual could come about in your life. Yeah, you might see them as a janitor, for example,
That's
inside
right.
a building.
That's right.
But let's say you accidentally, you're driving home from work and a deer jumps out in the road and you swerve off and go into a lake. The only guy that's walking by to save you is that janitor, for example.
Exactly.
Well, not to
yes.
say that he wouldn't help a stranger, but he might be more inclined to help someone that was, a friend or commendable or amicable with them. And I think it goes a long way to definitely be empathetic towards other individuals.
It's just when you are empathetic and you realize how that person might feel, you don't want to be condescending to somebody, but you want to be genuinely loving and kind. And it may be saying that something to your boss, or maybe saying something to the person that takes out the garbage. Or where would we be if they didn't take out the garbage?
Right.
And these people have extreme value in our civilization. We have no useless people. I mean, if we really think about it, I could go into a story about that, which I will in another video. I think I did in one video before, but it had to do with somebody from a very primitive culture was brought to New York, and they walked past and saw a person lying in an alley, and so what does that person do? Well, he's just a bum. Well, what is his purpose? Well, he didn't have any purpose. And the guy looks and he says, but everyone in our society has purpose. It's like, okay,
All right, we're
who
missing
is
something here.
civilized?
Yeah,
And who is not? Who has
right.
empathy and who doesn't?
Something's backwards
I mean, here it just made no sense. What is the next thing?
Number 2 is to do good things for others without a single thought of yourself.
How do you do that?
Well, what you do is you do things with the idea of that other individual in your mind or your perspective, the benefit of that person or the love for contributing or helping to someone. And it's interesting to think about because a lot of people that do things, whether it's community service or helping someone else out, a lot of times many individuals do it for self-gain or self-gratification. But to really do something good for someone else without thinking of yourself, I mean, that's how you can really change the world, because those things are contagious, in my opinion. By committing an act like that,
I think they are.
Yeah, and you tell someone else about it, they might be inclined to want to do the same thing because they believe that's the right thing, or you create an energy in the universe where you're starting a new pattern or a new timeline, so to speak.
I met a person one time. I have absolute certainty that I have no clue about what we're talking about. I don't think that person would have ever done anything for anybody else. And I know I'm being judgmental, but I'm basing it on what I saw in this individual. And yet that person was buying a Christmas tree. And they had absolutely no way to get that Christmas tree to their house. It just was not possible. The truck that in the big box store where I was at for a couple of years, they didn't have a truck. And this was, literally Christmas Eve, and they wanted this big tree. I had a truck, and I said, "Oh, I'll do it for you." And this guy was very adamant about paying me. You got to pay me to do that. I said, "Sir, I just live over the hill. I come this direction every day. Why would I not offer to do this for you? I don't need pay." Well, you're. I said, "Sir, look, let me tell you what you do. When you have an opportunity to help somebody else, you do that. Then I'm paid." And he just looked at me like, it's got to be from some other planet. This is ridiculous. But you know what? I think that got through to him. There was something that, as they say, the LED went on. It's just something seemed to kind of change at that point.
Absolutely.
Maybe I'm being optimistic, but no, I think there was a little change because I don't need anything. Thank you very much, but no. All right. What about leave it better than you found it? What does that mean?
Leave it better than you found it. That's something I've heard many times in my life, and I think it means that. Well, we're not necessarily talking about just a campsite, but it could apply to that. The idea of leaving it better than you found it is to look out for other people or realize that you're in a community where we have one earth. We have one place where we live. We all are on one planet. And until we have interplanetary travel and interstellar travel, we all have to live here. So if you should, as an individual, you should contribute to where you live. And whether it's cleaning up after yourself after you go camping, or making sure that your home's properly remodeled for a new tenant that's paying you to live there, or whatnot. We all have to live together, and we can change the world by being empathetic or considering other people's thoughts or feelings about having that same existence.
I agree with the last part you said as well as the first, but let me tell you about the last. I went to work in a company in Austin, and there was a guy who was absolute genius working for the company. He was one surly bird. It was like, oh my gosh, I got to talk to Frank. Oh, I don't like Frank. Why'd I have to deal with Frank? Always grousing and carrying on, and so one day I just had enough, and constant negative. So I went and talked to my boss, and I said, look, I've just about had it with Frank. He said, come here, sit down. Let me tell you something. Do you know anything about Frank? And I said, no, I don't. I just know that I really have a hard time with him. And he said, do you realize he's one of the smartest people we have working here? And I said, well, he hides it well. And I said, I agree, but let me tell you, Frank spent his entire lifetime being raised by people who didn't care one iota for him. His parents could care less. And now they're late into their advanced age, and he and his wife are taking care of them. And even in this situation, they make his life hell. But he's the kind of son who looks at the situation and said, it's not about them, it's about me. What kind of person can I be? I am dedicated to taking care of my parents. But it takes a huge toll on his ability just to have enough energy to get along with other people. And he brings some of that to work. He says, for goodness sake, don't ever talk about birthdays and don't ever talk about Father's Day to him, because the pain is unbelievable. But he says, if you will talk, just talk to him. Say, hey, Frank, how you doing today? And bring him a cup of coffee once in a great while. Not schmooze him or anything, but just be nice. Even if he's having a horrible day and he's grousing and all this, say, hey, how you doing today? Nobody does that. Nobody shows him any kindness whatsoever. As they say, they go by and kick the dog. He grumbles. But he says, if you will treat Frank like the genius that he is, go to him for questions on something, even if he's grumbling or whatever, after you do this a few times, he's going to realize, hey, this person values me. Wow. And he's going to start being nice to you. And I said, wow, you're asking a lot. And he said, look, you're going to be the one that's rewarded for this. It's going to work well for you, and you can learn a lot. So I did. And within 6 months, I thought, Frank hung the moon. He was fantastic. And everybody said, you get along with him? Yeah, I do. Yeah, I do. He would ask me to go get some burgers one day. Whoa, what? Okay, yeah, sure, let's go. I felt like the phrase, I left it better than I found it, with Frank. It was fantastic. It can apply to the world. It can apply to clean up your campsite when you're a Boy Scout, or it can apply to leaving a relationship better than you found it. Because in the long run, if everybody left it better than they found it, regardless of what the it is, what kind of a world would we have? That would be amazing.
Yeah.
But you have to work at it. You have to care about it. You even have to be empathetic. And I'm telling you what, it was hard to be empathetic to Frank. It was like, oh my gosh, what are you asking me to do? But I was rewarded big time. And he taught me so many things. He and a couple other people taught me enough that I could open my own nuclear laboratory. And I did. So I was very grateful to have this person in my life. And so unfortunately he's not with us today anymore. But wow. I felt like leaving it better than I found it was very applicable to that situation.
Absolutely. Sounds like it could be applied in different areas.
Yes, it can. Well, until the next time, this is Jerry.
And David.
And we bring you these videos every single day. We're excited to do so. These are topics that you've asked about, and we're very excited to try to expound upon those ideas and give you some information that I think just might be helpful. So if you like what we do, please hit the like button. And even better, perhaps you could subscribe. And so as we always say at the very end, be well.
Be well.